Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the Wyoming Women's Business Center's 2021 webinar series. It looks like it just hit noon, so I'm going to start today, and I want to thank everyone for joining us, as it could be your lunch hour, which is definitely, part of time management is multitasking. So thanks for joining me today. Today's presentation is Let's Get Organized, Time Management Master Strategies. I'm Veronica Donahue from our COVID-19 support program, and I'll be your speaker today. This webinar is the third and final webinar in a series of 3 webinars dedicated to organization and cybersecurity strategies. Each session is being recorded and available for viewing to all registered attendees. Shortly after our presentation today, I will email you a link to access that recording. You'll notice the GoToWebinar control panel on the right side of your screen. I want to call special attention to both the questions panel and the chat box. If you have any comments or questions during the webinar today, I'd like you to use those to communicate with us. And of course, I do have my colleague on the line, Rebecca, to help me manage the questions. As a reminder, all participants are muted to minimize background noise, and immediately following the presentation, a survey will launch on your computer. I do ask that you please complete this survey as it provides us and our funding partners with valuable information. Let's get started today with some quick information about the Wyoming Women's Business Center before we dive into our master strategies. There will be some time at the end for questions, and I have invited Rebecca to help me. So once again, if you have any questions or comments during the presentation, feel free to type them into that chat box or questions panel. The WWBC is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to enable and empower Wyoming entrepreneurs with a special emphasis on women who are economically or socially disadvantaged. And we do this through 4 distinct programs. The first is our business counseling and training program, which is always free. The second is our microfinance programs, which offer micro loans and individual development accounts. Third is the Artist Development Center we run in conjunction with the Works of Wyoming store and Art Connect Gallery in downtown Laramie. And lastly is our COVID-19 support program, which we launched last summer. This webinar series is brought to you by our COVID-19 support program, and I want to call special attention to the list of services available to Wyoming business owners when they become clients. You can sign up by going to our website at wyomingwomen.org, or you can contact me directly using my contact information below, and we will have contact information at the end of this presentation. Now more than ever, we are experiencing a time where communication is fast and there's an abundance of information available to us. And this is great for productivity. However, we also experience something called information overload. There is a problem that really contributes to feeling stressed and overwhelmed. So understanding that the constant flow of information is a part of life now, I think the best way to relieve the stress is to really review how we think about and manage our time and focus. So the first 2 strategies I want to talk about are really ways to evaluate your to-do list and prioritize the tasks throughout the week. Now this is kind of the planning element, which I think is the best way to avoid reaction tasks, or those tasks where you just don't think about it very much and just do the fastest possible solution. So if you're feeling like there's a lack of prioritization with your time and maybe you're getting sidetracked with less important things, I think these strategies can help split up your time, and they're a really great exercise to do regularly. So I think everyone is familiar with Warren Buffett. He's a very successful investor, and he's, ranked among the most wealthiest people in the world. And he has his own 3-step method to determining priorities and actions. So step 1 is to write down the top 25 goals you have. And this could be for the week, it could be for the year, or it could just be, top 25 goals lifetime. And after you have those 25 goals written down, step 2 is to review the list and find the 5 most important goals. So these are the ones that you looked at your first list of 25 and decided, these are the biggest, most important goals for the week. The second list is the 20 second place goals. Now, obviously, all these goals are important and things that you really care about doing, but they are not the biggest, most important goals. So Warren Buffett actually calls this, this list of 20 second place goals the avoid at all costs list, because the time and energy spent on achieving these goals can eat into achieving the big goals. And we want to focus on those big goals first. And the theory is by eliminating 4/5 of your goals, you stand a better and more productive chance of achieving those big important goals. And this is because you're going to be more focused and less prone to those important second place distractions. And this outlook really aligns with something Steve Jobs said, which is deciding what not to do is as important as deciding what to do. So this is a really common way that successful CEOs view time management. And like the Eisenhower Matrix, which is next, taking time to eliminate some of your to-do list is really going to help you keep the focus on what really matters. So the next strategy is the Eisenhower Matrix, and I hope this name rings a bell, as I'm referring to our 34th president, Dwight Eisenhower, who was also, a 5-star general in the Army during World War II. And he is the namesake of the Eisenhower Matrix because he used this while he was in office. The most critical philosophy here, which is actually a quote from Eisenhower, is, most things which are urgent are not important, and most things which are important are not urgent. So let's take a step back and go through a few of the tasks I have as an example and use the criteria of the matrix and kind of split them up. So the criteria is urgent versus not urgent and important versus not important. And I chose to do this example of, someone selling items online. So number 1, the printer needs toner. I would consider this urgent and important because you probably use that printer to fulfill orders. So we're going to put it in quadrant 1, which is the urgent and important quadrant. The next example, file 2020 tax returns. So this is important, of course, but it's not urgent because we do have a couple months left. And this could be urgent, March 10th, it's very urgent. But right now, it's not very urgent. So we're going to put it in quadrant 2. And this is the planning quadrant. And you're going to want to schedule some time to focus on that activity. All right, number 3, hang pictures in office. So this is not important and it's not urgent. Maybe it's important if you have like a photo shoot coming up, but for this example, we're going to say it's neither important nor urgent. So we'll put that in quadrant 4. The next one is meet with marketing counselor. So this is important, but not urgent. I don't have to do this by the end of the day, but it's important to me and I want to do it soon. So we're going to put that in quadrant 2. Number 5, shop online for new packaging. So I would consider this one to be not important and not urgent. So maybe you're just thinking about, getting some prettier stuff to send to your customers. But of course, this isn't, going to be something that you don't do at the end of the day and something bad happens, right? So we're going to put that in quadrant 4. And I do have 2 more to add to this list. So check PO box. I would consider that to be urgent, but not important. So I put that in quadrant 3. And then number 7, I have fulfill orders. So this is important and urgent because this is something you do every day. You have to fulfill your orders as an e-commerce store. So that would go in quadrant 1. So now that we categorized each task, you know that the first thing we need to do are in quadrant 1, and this is the do quadrant. These tasks have clear deadlines and you need to take action to do these tasks. And these are, at the top of your list, at the top of your to-do list. Quadrant 2, of course, is the planning quadrant. So these are activities that, it's easy to put them off because there's no clear deadline, but you need to schedule time for these because they are very important. Quadrant 3, so things that need to be done but don't require your specific skills. And this is also known as busy work. So these are delegated tasks or tasks that you should automate. So for example, the check PO box, that might be something where you hire someone to go bring your mail to you once a week. Or it could be something that, if you have a lot in your delegate box, maybe you should hire someone to help you, take some tasks off your schedule. And then of course, quadrant 4 is eliminate. These are the distraction tasks, and these are things that you don't really have to do right away, and it's not that important. So these are things you probably should just take off your to-do list and put them on your will do when my to-do list is done list. So after you've evaluated your goals and your to-dos, it'll be really clear if there is a whole set of tasks that aren't helping those big goals. And this is the point where you have to consider delegation, and you have to consider, maybe my time is worth more than checking my PO box once a month, or maybe I just need a better printer solution. If my printer keeps breaking, or I buy so much toner, maybe I should delegate that or automate that. Now, if you're one of those people that feels like there aren't enough hours in the day and you're constantly busy, evaluating the time spent on tasks can really reveal some habits and tendencies that might not be obvious when you're working. So by taking a week to track your time, you can identify what tasks create the most value for your business and really see how much time you're spending on each task. And this goes along with the Pareto Principle, which is also called the 80-20 rule. So this states that 80% of the consequences come from 20% of the causes, or in other words, 80% of the outcomes come from only 20% of the input. Now, this principle can be applied to a lot of different topics, but for time management, the Pareto Principle illustrates that most people work in a way that 80% of their work-related outcomes come from only 20% of their time. Now, keeping this theory in mind, I want you to take a week and track everything you do so that you can see if this principle applies to you and see if you're spending enough time on those important tasks. This is also called a time audit. It can help you identify if there are any areas of your workday that are inefficient. Maybe if you're spending 2 hours on your 12-column ledger, you should maybe look into a more automated method of bookkeeping. There are quite a few time tracking tools that you can use to put together this information. And this, of course, is part of that analysis element of working. If time management is an issue, the best solution is to analyze what you're currently doing so that you can see which areas need improvement. Now that we've gone through the foundational strategies of time management, which include evaluating your goals, evaluating your to-do list, and evaluating your time spent, you can start applying some more active strategies to managing your time. So a time budget is an idea from Steve Ballmer, who is the CEO of Microsoft from 2000 to 2014. And a time budget can really address the limited resource of time by planning out your work-life balance. Similar to a personal budget where we spend monies on necessities and wants, I think as entrepreneurs it can be incredibly hard to separate the necessities and wants of work and separating that personal life from work life because your business is such a big part of your life. This is why time budgeting comes before scheduling your calendar, because we do need to value that work-life balance. And I think taking this comprehensive 1,000-foot view of our time can really help us take that time for ourselves and say no to working too much. The point I want to make here is that managing time is really about managing your focus and managing your priorities. And many people fail at time management because they don't understand that priorities come in both your work life and your personal life. And those big goals have to be prioritized before we can prioritize tasks. And of course, those have to be prioritized before we can get to scheduling. So the next slide is really about schedule blocking. And this is basically a way to line out your week and make sure that you're devoting time to your priorities. I always recommend keeping yourself accountable by blocking out your schedule like this and making time for each priority because we often get caught up with distractions. And as you can see here, there's commute time, there's exercise time, there's email time, client meeting, client calls, basically every big thing that you do. If you can line it out like a weekly schedule, I think this is the best way to kind of get more done and also understand, when am I going to be busy? If someone asks to call me, am I going to be busy at that time? Whereas if you don't block your schedule off, you're actually kind of taking things on a whim, and then you might get busy, and it's just not organized. And I think blocking out your schedule is just the best way to keep organized. And of course, you can use your email calendar, your Google Calendar. I know oftentimes our computer will have a calendar app on it that you can use. So this is just the best piece of advice, is to block out your schedule and keep it flexible, keep it changing, so that if one week you don't meet all your goals, maybe you need to set some more time for certain tasks, you can do that. So this last slide is just a few tips for your schedule blocking. The first is what's called a social sweep, and this comes from Richard Branson, who's the founder of the Virgin Group. And if you don't know who Richard Branson is, he's an incredible entrepreneur and definitely someone to be inspired by, so go look him up if you're curious. He actually manages every minute of his time every single day, including his sleep and exercise, and he blocks out time every morning at the start of the workday to check in on social media accounts. And I think this is probably a really good tip if you get distracted with marketing and social media, because it really limits that time to just 30 minutes at the start of the day to get some inspiration. And of course, social media certainly gets you thinking, so I think it's really great that he does this at the beginning of the day, because it kind of keeps that momentum going, that excitement, as opposed to doing it at the end of the day where you might, decide to do some more work after you check out social media. The next tip actually comes from Jack Dorsey, who is the co-founder and CEO of Twitter and Square. And this tip is really great if you have more than just work and personal life. If you have a part-time job, or you're in school, or you have more than one business, categorizing those days is a really great way to compartmentalize your organization. Of course, Jack Dorsey gives each day a theme to help, split up those two businesses that he's the CEO of, and really compartmentalize the tasks and duties for each business so you don't get distracted. All right, the next one is prepare for your meetings. By setting aside some time to prepare an agenda that lists, the objectives and the plan for the meeting, this can help reduce the wasted time during meetings because you know what's next, and it'll help avoid the follow-up meeting that, you forgot that you needed to talk about a topic, so now you need another meeting. So I would suggest adding at least 15 minutes before your meeting to get all those ducks in a row and produce an agenda. But really, I recommend doing this a couple days ahead of the meeting and get your agenda in order and send it out to everyone so that they know what the plan is. All right, set aside time for emails. As you saw with my time blocking image, they set aside about an hour of time for the email in the morning. And I think this is great because oftentimes we get caught up replying to emails and we're hopping back and forth and we're not focused on the task at hand because someone emails us. And so it's recommended to just set aside time to respond to emails and phone calls because it keeps them from eating away at all your other tasks. And so what I would recommend is doing one at the beginning of the day for maybe 30 minutes and then another at the end of the day to just catch up before the next day. All right, the last number 5 is do nothing time. And this sounds like it's probably anti-productive and you shouldn't do it. However, in keeping sanity and focus, it's often a great idea to add the do nothing time to your schedule. For example, you might be here eating lunch watching this webinar. Maybe lunch should be a time for you to reflect on the morning and kind of make sure that you're thinking through all those problems that you solved. I think it's a great time to just refocus and think about any problems you've run into and avoid reacting too fast to those problems because you'll know you'll have time to think about them and be thoughtful with the solution. Of course, do nothing time is just a great way to set aside time in case anything runs long, but I do think it's good to devote time just to refocus and think about, the problems at hand. So this is the last slide of my webinar, and I will open it up to questions. I'll give you some time and I'll run through these ending slides and then we'll get to the questions next. So I do want to take some time really fast to talk about a great opportunity from Cyber Wyoming to get individualized support with your business's cybersecurity through 2021 Wyoming Cybersecurity Competition. This is run by Cyber Wyoming, which is a nonprofit organization in Wyoming. And the competition is free to enter and open to all small businesses, nonprofits, and home-based businesses. I have attached a press release from Cyber Wyoming to read about the competition. And of course, you can go to their website at cyberwyoming.org. The Wyoming Women's Business Center is made possible through several partnership agencies, and our primary funding comes from the U.S. Small Business Administration and the Wyoming Business Council. We are so thankful for the support and guidance of our partners, and we look forward to the work ahead. Of course, if you are interested in one-on-one free business counseling for your business or any business startup ideas you have, you can of course contact us at our website, wyomingwomen.org, or contact our counselor, Jonathan Howdeshell, directly. His phone and email are here. And if you're interested in our COVID-19 support program, my contact information is here, and we do still have several resources available to our Wyoming small businesses. All right, so I'm going to look at the slides, or look at our questions. Okay, is there a place where we can access all of these great presentations and the short video trainings? I'm having trouble recalling all the names and locating emails. Maybe we missed our emails. So we do have all of these recordings available on our GoToWebinar library, and I can actually contact you after this with some links to those videos. And we also have a YouTube channel, and you can go to youtube.com and just search Wyoming Women's Business Center. Okay, someone asked, will you repeat the Pareto Principle again? I missed the premise within time management. Okay, let's go back to that slide. Okay, so the Pareto Principle can apply to a bunch of different topics, but basically the idea is that most commonly people do the most work in the least amount of time. So usually out of your whole workday, only 20% of that time actually contributes to 80% of your progress. So if you have, a big project coming up, most of the time we kind of procrastinate and get distracted, and only 20% of our time that we spent working on that project actually resulted in 80% of the work. It's kind of interesting. It is just a theory, but I think it makes a lot of sense. I think things don't actually take as much time as we think they do. We end up spending a lot more time just because we can. Okay, what were the names for number 1 and 2 on the last slide? So I'm thinking you're talking about the people who kind of came up with these ideas. So Social Sweep was from Richard Branson, who's from the Virgin Group. I think they have a airline, Virgin Airlines, and they have so many companies under that group. It's a really interesting guy. I really like his principles. And then Categorizing Days is from Jack Dorsey, who's the CEO of Twitter and Square. Okay, so I see someone said, excellent suggestions. Thank you so much. Well, thanks everyone for joining me. I don't see any more questions today. Rebecca, do you see any other questions?
Nope, you're all good.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining me today, and I do want to remind you that we do have that survey that will launch at the end of this webinar, And actually, before I get off here, I just want to talk about how many awesome upcoming webinars we're going to do. If you're interested in reading about these upcoming webinars, you can of course go to our website at wyomingwomen.org and click on the training tab and register for free for all of these webinars. All right, thank you so much everyone who came to our webinar today, and I hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday.